Good afternoon, everybody. My presentation is going to be a little different from the presenters before me. I'm not going to be presenting anything on the research that we've done. This is more a presentation on, since we are 25 years and the CCC, or the Community Conservation Center in Darjeeling, is about 20 plus years. It's also a way of introspecting where we are right now, how we should go forward, and how many of my other CCC colleagues would also agree with me some of the issues of scale and impact. So just a bit of reflection on all that. This is also a presentation where I have taken the inputs of many similar organizations in the region about their challenges and this constant thing about scale, thing about impact, especially when we do these very, very place or site-based interventions. I would also like to say that unlike the other centers around ATREE, the Eastern Himalaya, or the Darjeeling CCC, started off as a implementation organization, or a center for implementation, when Dr. Kamal Bawa established it in way back in the late 90s, a little after ATREE was registered. So there are our work, but I would also like to take into the work of others that are in the region, and the way they work also impacts how we work and how we think about the work that we do. So these are these emerging and evolving place-based biodiversity conservation efforts that have been going on in the region. So most of ATREE's work, as you can see, have been around protected areas and in reserve forest areas. And I would say in the 20 years, there has been some transformation stories. And the way we took this forward, and when we sat as a team and analyzed that how were we able to bring some kind of transformation in these site level problems that we set out to solve. And as a team, what we found out and what we discussed and what we came up with was, there were some catalysts, I think, in the work that we did. Did we think of scale and impact and those kind of things then, way back in the 90s, when I asked the staff who were present there? I don't think we thought about that. But definitely as we evolved with our work, there were catalysts like working together. The other thing is building institutions, a lot of capacity building, and a lot of incentivization. So the idea was that in order for people not to be negative to biodiversity in the way they are harvesting resources from the forest, then we need to incentivize. So again, it is this old model of integrated way of trade-off kind of thing. If you do this, and then you'll get that. So I think in a way that was the model, but what has happened is, while doing that, there has also been this evolving way of building institutions, empowering people, and empowering the people in such a way in some of the village that they are now able to do their own negotiations, and they've been negotiating about rights to establish their own enterprises, even if it's in a protected area, negotiating. And in the hills, the Forest Rights Act hasn't been very successful, but also being able to negotiate even for the rights that they would get from the, as part of the FRA. And a lot of training has gone on. And then we have been able to, as a team, say that, there has been a lot of livelihood transformations in a way that, if this is a picture of a village which was completely dependent on the drudgery of coal making, And I think ATREE's almost decade-long interventions have actually transformed the village where you can see below, and many livelihoods transformation, as we can see on the far right. So they've been able to diversify, and when we say they were able to diversify, we assume and we believe that their livelihoods are going to be more resilient. They are able to withstand many of these stochastic events, be it disasters, be it the pandemic that we came across, or even on a personal level, they would be able to be resilient towards many of these things. But one of the reflections that also came out, and we ask ourselves, is by doing these alternative livelihoods, did we take away the people, distance the people from their relationship with the forest? The rich knowledge, the rich traditions they had, the rich practice they had, which was again very much linked with the natural resources and the forest. So did we do that? Did we have some unintended results in the 22 years that we were working on the ground? Implementation, working on conservation and livelihoods, sustainable livelihoods. And similar models we see all around. This is a model where communities have called us and are asking us to help monitor whether by building this, conserving this one bird. I mean, this place has transformed. Basically, it's at the edge of a protected area, a wildlife sanctuary. But because of this particular species, a landscape which was impoverished has really, they've really transformed their livelihoods in terms of bringing in tourism. But then there are emerging questions of how sustainable and how positive to biodiversity was this action when you're bringing in, there's a huge human footprint and leading to more consumerism, built up areas, and the different way of building, and again the question of more and more adding rather than being sustainable. There are again success models like we talk about. We again been working with the Kanchenjunga Conservation Committee, which actually worked a lot on waste. Now waste is again one of the biggest issue, problem that we are talking about. And they are again asking an organization like ATREE to really evaluate and review and see whether the change they have made, the impact that they have made, and where the government also has been very helpful and supportive to them. Are these really impacts? Are these, again, the pressure of scaling up? Can these be scaled up? Can these be replicated? So and then we have the story of this community-based conservation in community-led restoration project in Assam, where they're trying to restore about 600 hectares as a purely community initiative, and again, doing plantations again. So again, we've been called here to build the capacity of people to really engage in this kind of an activity. So we having been involved in this community level initiatives, implementation level initiatives. We are in the process of retrospecting for ourselves to let communities themselves know what could be the impacts, what is scale, because for them, they are in a way asking questions to us about, is this the right way to go forward? So I think for us, it came about in a very, at the right time, because we were trying to, as an implementation organization, to even retrospect and look at ourselves, our work, to say, in terms of impact, in terms of scale, which we constantly we are pressured into, or we have to, we are said impacts and scale. So where are we moving towards that? So, and many others I'm not going to mention because there's a shortage of time right now. So in the end, I think the place-based research and actions, we want to move on to a regional model. So that is the mandate that, if we've done a good thing, we are supposed to be replicating that, and we are supposed to be scaling that up. So these are some of the approaches we had, very, very site-specific, very specific problems, as you can see, and direct engagements. We had more or less a very shared vision with the communities. And we also, for us, we saw very, very direct impacts, and we saw some, transformations at the village level. We tried to make our, approaches very, very participatory, and we worked together. And there was a lot of reciprocal learning from the people, because everything was co-designed and even knowledge created sitting with the people and implementing accordingly. Now when we go about, we've finished almost 20 years of this kind of work, and the vision or the mandate now is, can we now be, models for testing in other places, scaling up, which is again big, what can be, what should be, how are we going to do this? Because again, for implementation organization, centers like us, this is again a big question. And because we need to bring about change, and we need to bring about impacts. So these are some of the very retrospective questions we are asking ourselves at ATREE at 25. So when we ask ourselves, and as a team, what are some of the challenges or barriers we feel there are to scaling up these, and our experiences or our team experiences has been that it takes such a long time because we have had such a long years of engagement. And for having such a long years of engagement, many times there aren't donors who are going to support you for the same thing for 20 years. Also, there's been these conflicting changes. Suddenly you are working on something, on a certain kind of agriculture, and then there is a complete change in the local policy about some agriculture work. And then also there is the sustained funding effort and the change in local aspirations. There's how do we integrate with what ATREE stands for, and the other mandate that we have also, research and linking it to practice. And are some of these really transferable to other sites, because each site is so different and so diverse. And then the shifting actors and power dynamics that we have. And also, while we want a uniform framework for scaling up, would we want to lose the nuances of each site? So I think this is a retrospection for all of us, and I'm just sharing with you your thoughts, and I'd be very happy to discuss with whoever is interested to. Thank you so much.